Vintage collections are more than just a hobby, they are a reflection of our history and personal style. Whether you collect vintage clothing, vinyl records, antique furniture, or any other unique items, it's important to find creative ways to display and showcase your treasures. Not only will this bring your collection to life, but it will also serve as a source of inspiration and spark conversations with others who appreciate the beauty of vintage items. In this video, we will explore 10 creative ways to display vintage collections that will elevate your space and make your prized possessions shine. The first creative way, and one of the best ways to display your vintage collections, is to create a gallery wall. Select a variety of frames in different sizes and styles that complement the theme of your collection. Arrange your vintage items in an eye-catching pattern, mixing and matching colors, shapes, and textures. This display will not only add visual interest to your wall but also provide a focal point for your vintage treasures. The second creative way is open shelving, which is an excellent way to display your vintage collection while keeping it easily accessible. Choose a floating shelf or opt for a vintage-inspired bookcase and arrange your items in a visually pleasing manner. Experiment with different heights and group similar items together for a curated look. Consider adding small plants or artwork to break up the collection and add dimension to the display. Furthermore, using shadow boxes provide a unique opportunity to display and protect fragile vintage items. Use a shadow box with a glass front to create a mini museum of your collection. Arrange your vintage items on different levels within the box, using small stands or hooks if necessary. Add a label or description for each item to provide context and enhance the storytelling aspect of your display. The fourth creative way is using vintage-inspired display cases which add charm and authenticity to your collection. Look for vintage lockers, glass front cabinets, or even repurpose old suitcases into display cases. Use these cases to showcase smaller items such as jewelry, china, or trinkets. Arrange them in an aesthetically pleasing way and let your vintage treasures steal the show. Moreover, if you have a considerable vintage collection, investing in a curio cabinet will keep your items organized and protected from dust. Curio cabinets come in various sizes, styles, and materials, allowing you to find the perfect fit for your collection. Arrange your items by type, color, or era to create a visually appealing display inside the cabinet. Consider adding LED lights to illuminate the items and make them stand out even more. The sixth creative way to display your collections is utilizing vintage trunks and suitcases, which serve as both storage and display pieces. Stack them in a corner or use them as a coffee table, and showcase your vintage collection by opening them slightly to reveal a glimpse of your treasures. You can also use these trunks or suitcases to store smaller items inside while displaying larger pieces on top. The seventh way deals with fully utilizing vintage clothing. Vintage clothing is not only meant to be worn, it can also be treated as artwork. Hang your favorite vintage pieces on the wall using decorative hooks or hangers. Mix and match different textures and colors to create an eclectic look. This not only adds visual interest to your space but also preserves the delicate fabrics of your vintage garments. Furthermore, adding vintage props to your collection display can help set the scene and add a touch of nostalgia. Use vintage cameras, old radios, or antique books as props to complement your collection. This creates a cohesive theme and allows you to tell a story with your display. The ninth creative way is to create a vintage vignette. Vignettes are small, curated arrangements that tell a story or evoke a certain mood. Set up a vintage vignette by selecting a specific theme or era and arranging your collection accordingly. For example, create a 1950s diner vignette with your vintage kitchenware and vinyl records. Add small details like retro signage or vintage advertisements to enhance the ambience. Lastly, if you have a large vintage collection, consider installing a rotating display. This can be a wall-mounted or freestanding display unit with rotating panels or shelves. This allows you to showcase more items without overwhelming your space. Change the display periodically for a fresh look and to highlight different pieces from your collection. Displaying vintage collections in creative and thoughtful ways allows you to celebrate their uniqueness and share your passion with others. By incorporating elements like gallery walls, open shelving, shadow boxes, vintage display cases, curio cabinets, vintage trunks, and suitcases, vintage clothing as art, vintage props, vignettes, and rotating displays, you can transform your space into a personal museum that reflects your style and love for vintage treasures. So, dust off your vintage collection and start displaying it with pride. Be sure to like this video, and click to subscribe to see more content.